Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Tower of God New World. In today's video, we are going to implement the two brand new characters in this updated tier list. Plus, I am going to reorganize some characters in this tier list because I do feel like there are some units who got leveled up in this tier list, and there are some units who are currently underperforming and they should, belong in a lower tier. So let's not waste any time and let's go ahead and hop right into the video. Now, the first unit that I am going to lower down in the tier list is Vespa. And the reason why I'm going to lower Vespa down in the tier list is because the only reason why Vespa was needed in adventure mode for light element team comp is because we didn't have a tank unit. So Vespa was pretty much a stall tank until we had a pretty decent tank unit. So I feel like Vespa, she is absolutely amazing against bosses, but the fact that we just got a tank unit, I feel like Vespa, her, how do I say this? I feel like her existence in light element team comp is no longer needed. So therefore she's lowered down to B tier. Now, Vicente also got lower down in the tier list. He was in S tier, but I put him in A tier. And the reason why is because of Jin Sung and of course Kaseya. I feel like if you have these two units, you don't really need to use Vicente. Like, he's pretty much like an extra. He's still a really good unit and you can use him alongside with Jin Sung. But compared to, these two units, I just feel like Vicente isn't that crazy and he's not a necessity compared to Jin Sung and Kaseya. Now, I did move up Punisher into S plus tier. I did have him in S tier. Now, the only reason why I'm doing this is because so many people, every tier list video I make, everybody's always saying Punisher in, Punisher in, Punisher in. I'm like, you know what? Okay, I'm going to put him in S plus tier. But just to let you guys know, Punisher in is not busted with 0 copies. You need copies on him in order for him to work. So Punisher in, really good with copies, but without copies, Punisher in is not crazy. He's just a tanky DPS unit. So I'm going to put him in S plus tier if you have copies on him. If you don't have any copies on Punisher in, he is going to be in that S tier. So he remains in that S plus tier as of right now. Now for next unit, it is Novik. I feel like Novik, he was in B tier, but I put him in C tier because this guy is honestly irrelevant and I don't really see anybody using him at all. So he's really C tier. Like in adventure mode, he's pretty much useless because he dies so fast. And against bosses, he doesn't really do much. The only thing he can pretty much do is decrease the amount of damage your team can take if they're in his ultimate. So Novik isn't really useful, to be honest. He's probably by far one of the worst SSR units that they've released so far. So those are pretty much all the units I wanted to talk about. Now let's go ahead and talk about the two new characters. So I currently have them in the D tier because I couldn't put them back in like the slot right here, but it is what it is. So first unit we have is Hatz. Now for Hatz, there's like a lot of mixed feelings about this character. I would say like 75% of the Top God New World community feel like Hatz is absolutely amazing, and I'll say like 25% feels like Hatz is, he's a good unit, but his survivability isn't that crazy, which is fair because if we're being honest, his survivability is nowhere near Flight Eric Mazino, Escanor, and Awaken Rack. So I will say as a tank unit, his survivability isn't as crazy and as broken as Escanor and Awaken Rack, but his usage and his capabilities are extremely useful. 140% defense decrease, he can cleanse the entire team, plus he can increase his own defense and his max HP. Very useful. And when you pair him up with Evan, he can survive really well. To be honest, my Hatz, his survivability has been absolutely amazing. So I think it really depends on, like, what build you have on your Hatz. If you're using his best in slot set, the ignition weapon set, which is the Sela set, if you're using that, he gets magic and physical resistance. Plus, if you're building the right substats on him, if you're putting magic resistance, physical resistance, defense, and HP, you're good to go. So you really have to focus on putting the right stats on him, getting some evasion, resistance, swiftness. Once you get the key substats that are going to pretty much increase the survivability, Hatz is a really insane unit. So I feel like the best spot for him would be S tier. because light element, they were in desperate need of a tank unit, and I feel like Hatz is by far the best tank unit for light element, because the only two tank units we've had is Data Uric. He was pretty much trash, and we also have compressed rack, not compressed rack, this guy right here, rack. He was also trash as well. So Hatz pretty much does his job. He pretty much does his job. He survives pretty well. He makes sure that the team, doesn't have any debuffs, and he's able to inflict defense shred on the enemy, which allows Yiwa and compressed rack to do a ton of damage. So I feel like he is an amazing unit overall. Compared to Awaken Rack and Escanor, he is not on their level. These two units are by far the best tank units in the game, but I still feel like he is, a good tank unit for light element. It is definitely a good start. So Hatz, definitely S tier, and he's not really competing with anybody else in his element. Like, he's not really competing with no other tank units because he's the only one. So that's the main reason why he definitely belongs in that S tier, because he's really not competing with anybody, and we really don't have a choice. We have to use this unit, and he is absolutely a must-have unit if you're pretty much, fighting bosses in the underground laboratory daily. He is really, really amazing against bosses in underground laboratory because of that defense shred. So Hatz, amazing unit. Now the next unit we have is Kaiser. She is literally the best damage dealing unit in the game. She can deal the most damage, which is really, really good. She can deal more damage than Joaquin, Vivi, Yiwa. She's insane. But I will say her survivability is very fragile, so you do have to pair her up with a unit that's going to increase her survivability. Let's say Escanor, Flight, Eric Mazino. You also have that is a hard. You have to pair her up with a unit that's going to pretty much distract the enemy to the point where they're not going to touch Kaiser at all. Because if she gets touched at least once, she's dead. Her survivability is very, very bad. But her damage makes up for it. So that's what makes her a very broken unit. Now, I will say that when it comes to Kaiser, right, she has this skill where she can pretty much block skills from the enemy. That is useful, but a unit that can pretty much counter Kaiser very, very hard is Kun Adon. Kun Adon, he literally just counters her so hard to the point where as soon as she attacks him, he instantly destroys her. So if you are going up against a Kun Adon, you have to use a Vicente or Jinsung, a unit that's pretty much going to target Kun Adon so that he won't get rid of Kaiser. So I will say Kun Adon, he is a huge counter to her, but besides that, she is a very powerful unit. So therefore, she belongs in that S plus tier. All right, now, so when we take a look at the light element tier list, this is what we have so far. We have Bomb, Evan, and Yiwa in S plus tier. And in S tier, we have Compressed Rack with Kun Adon. And then for A tier, we have this character right here. I forgot her name. And then for B tier, we have Shibisu, Wingman, Hatz, Vespa, and Data Uric Mazino. And then for C tier, we have the chicken, and we also have this character right here, and we also have this guy alongside with Rack. So this is pretty much the light element tier list. Now, when we look at Hatz, the best tier for him is going to be S tier. Now, like I said, Hatz, he's not really competing with anybody because he is the only good light element tank unit as of to right now. But the reason why I put him in S tier is because yes, he is an amazing unit when it comes to debuffing the enemies, plus he is really good when it comes to cleansing your allies, but he's just missing one thing, which is a provocation, which makes him, a tank unit. So I do feel like they are going to release a way better tank unit that's literally on Awaken Rack and Escanor's level. But as of to right now, Hatz, he is a very strong tank unit, but he's just missing that provocation. So I'm really waiting for a tank unit that's going to pretty much be on the same exact level as Awaken Rack and Escanor, because Hatz, he's just missing that provocation, but he is still an amazing tank unit overall. So S tier is pretty much his spot in the light element tier list. Now the next thing we have here is blue element. Now if we take a look at Kaiser, it's pretty obvious that she is going to belong in that S plus tier. She is absolutely crazy when it comes to dealing damage, and I feel like her potential is going to increase further and further the more blue element units we have in the future. So Kaiser, absolutely amazing unit. Highly recommend you guys to invest in her. So yeah, really strong unit. But that's pretty much all I have for you guys in the updated tier list. Make sure you guys hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't. I really appreciate it. And if you guys disagree, agree, share it in the comment section down below. But I hope you all have a good one. I'll be catching you guys on the next one. Peace.